my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm going to cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt-Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place for women to come together to share their childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from women all over the world. Today's episode is sponsored by Ergobaby. Founded in 2003, Ergobaby has pioneered the gold standard for comfortable, ergonomic, soft-structured carriers. Ergobaby is dedicated to helping families bond, grow, and thrive by creating premium baby products where function and quality are not compromised. Ergobaby has created a broad range of award-winning baby carriers, strollers, swaddlers, nursing pillows, and related products that fit into families' daily lives seamlessly, comfortably, and safely. In 2020, they launched EverLove by Ergobaby, a first-of-its-kind baby carrier buyback and resale program, a sustainability effort to support families and the planet. At the end of this episode, I'll be talking to Brandy all about Ergobaby and EverLove by Ergobaby. I also want to say a big thank you to all of our listener supporters via Patreon. Patreon is a platform to help you support the creators that you love, and for just $5 a month, you can support The Birth Hour and get access to special perks like our private Facebook group, our archived episodes, and bonus content each month. We also now have an annual membership option that comes with a free month. You can find out more at patreon.com/birthhour or thebirthhour.com/support. Today's birth story guest is Grace. She's going to be sharing her most recent birth. She was actually on the podcast back in 2017 and shared her first birth. We actually just replayed that episode on episode 479 if you want to go listen to that. But today she's going to talk about how her planned home birth turned into an emergent hospital induction due to reduced in fetal movement, and how she then became associated with the Count the Kicks Association. She shares about that a little bit more at the end, so be sure to tune into that. We also published a blog post by Grace all about Count the Kicks and how you can use their app, so be sure to check out her show notes page where I'll link to that blog post as well. All right, let's get to today's birth story with Grace. Hi, Grace. Welcome back to the Birth Hour. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hey, Bryn. I'm glad to be back.
So you came on and shared your first birth story quite a while back, like 3 years, I think, almost, episode 135, if people want to listen to that. But will you just remind people a little bit about who you are and your family?
Yes. So I think it was in 2017. I remember because I was really pregnant with my second. I was, I think like 8 or 9 months pregnant, about to have her when I shared. And my first baby, I had an unmedicated hospital birth with an OB with my with a doula. And a fun thing about that was my sister was my labor and delivery nurse. Mm-hmm. And so then with my second, I had planned a home birth with a midwife, and everything, it went pretty straightforward with her. I went like 3 days past my due date, which in my first, I'd had her 2 days before my due date, but 3 days past my due date, just, spontaneous labor. Things went well. It was fairly similar to my first. It started like in the middle of the night, and then I actually had a break where I went back to sleep and then woke up and it started again like mid-morning. And I had her just before 2:00 in the afternoon with my midwife there and, and some family there. And it went well and it was straightforward. And with my third, he was due last summer. I think his due date was August 23rd of 2019. And I had planned another home birth with him. We did not find out what we were having with him. It was, we had found out with our 2 girls, but we decided to be surprised with our third. And that was just a really fun thing to do. I don't know. I can't remember if you found out with yours or not, but it's really fun.
Yeah, we found out with the first 2, but did the surprise with the third as well. I feel like that's just how it goes with the third.
It's so much fun. And everybody was like, what if it's a boy? And I was like, well, you really don't need much stuff for a baby. I think by your third, you realize that. And I'm like, I don't need a ton of stuff. And it was just a lot of fun. So, and we ended up being really glad we didn't, because it was a fun surprise after his birth story, which you'll hear in a minute. But I had planned a home birth, and I was with the same midwife that I'd used with my second. And, it was a healthy pregnancy. Nothing was going on with it. I had the only thing, I was advanced maternal age, but I actually listen to evidence-based birth podcast a lot and read their stuff. And I'd read a lot about advanced maternal age from that and from just other sources, and really knew that apart from other risk factors like, high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, the bigger risk factor was if you were advanced maternal age and it was your first baby versus like if you've had other previous healthiest pregnancies, it's not as big as a risk factor. And if moms are interested in that, they can look it up on evidence-based birth. She talks about that more. She actually has a podcast episode where she explains it really well. So other than advanced maternal age, which I didn't feel like was a big risk factor for me, everything was fine. Everything was healthy. And I was seeing my midwife, but I was also seeing my OB for concurrent care. And the way Homebirth and midwifery works in Mississippi, midwifery care is not licensed in Mississippi for Homebirth, but Homebirth is legal, but it kind of falls on the consumer then to do their due diligence, as I feel like any pregnant woman should do in any circumstance, like do your due diligence with your provider. But anyway, I was seeing my OB concurrently. And at 37 weeks, we discovered the baby had flipped breech. And I was like, what in the world? And I was getting a biophysical profile just because I was advanced maternal age. And I had consented to some of those extras to kind of make my OB feel better about stuff. And so he was breech and he was a footling breech. And I had always thought I would be fine with having a breech baby and attempting a vaginal breech birth. And I was a good candidate. I'd had straightforward births before and straightforward vaginal births, but he was footling breech, which my midwife said she didn't want to do a planned footling breech. If you were frank breech, that would be something else, but she preferred that you be frank breech, not footling breech. And so this is kind of the first twist in the plot. And I was kind of, started doing all the things to flip a breech baby. I started doing the spinning babies, breech tilt, which are really not fun. And I think it's interesting because I had told so many other moms to do them because I'm a doula and a childbirth educator. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but, tell the moms, oh, here's the information from spinning babies. You can just, set up an ironing board on the couch and get upside down and do it. It sounds simple enough. It is not. Like when you are 37 weeks pregnant, getting on and off that thing, it's just not fun. Like it was really unpleasant. And I was doing that, and I was doing the Spinning Babies Daily Essentials, which I had been doing throughout my pregnancy before. So I was kind of threw me for a loop when I found out he had flipped breech because he had been head down any other time. I'd either gotten a sonogram or we had done or palpated him or whatever. He was always head down. So I did that. There's an acupuncturist that I've gone to before, and she gave me some moxibustion sticks, and we did those. It was the middle of the summer, so I went to the swimming pool and was doing the handstands in the pool. People probably thought I was crazy, 9 months pregnant doing handstands in the pool. And, we were talking to him, telling him to move down, everything you can imagine. I got adjusted by the chiropractor. I was like, we're just going to do everything. And the next week he was head down again. And so I don't know if he would have flipped head down on his own or what, if any of those things worked or if it was a combination of all those things. But I was really thankful that he was head down at that point. So everything continues and it goes well. At my 40-week appointment, we did, and I was like 40 and 2, I think, or 40 and 3. And it was a Monday, and they had done another biophysical profile, and everything was great. My fluid level was a 10, which they were commenting, wow, being 40 weeks and having a fluid level that high is fantastic. He, he moved and did his breathing exercises, all the stuff they're supposed to do in a biophysical profile, quickly checked off everything. My blood pressure was great. Everything was great. And it was like, we'll just, you're fine. You can go home. So I was, just thinking everything was great. And then, so that was on a Monday. On Thursday, I was 40 and 6. And I woke up in the morning and I thought, I don't notice him moving quite as much, but I, went and got a snack. And I think I got some orange juice and drank some cold water and laid down and did, and I quickly got him moving and got kick counts done. And I went back and actually looked, and I was using the app that I was using. He said it was 10 counts in less than 25 minutes. And that's just what it had recorded. I don't remember the exact amount of time. And one thing that I will say is from his birth and what I learned, I'll talk about this more at the end, but I became an ambassador for Count the Kicks. And one of the things they really advocate is for fetal monitoring throughout the third trimester, and moms doing it at home and counting baby's movement throughout the third trimester once a day. And the reason you do it every day is so you can know what is normal for you. You can know how long it takes your baby to get to 10 kicks. Because if you look online, if you do a quick Google search, you might find that ACOG says baby should hit 10 movements within 2 hours, or other places will say they should get about 10 movements in an hour. And, but the thing is that every baby is different. Any woman who's been pregnant more than once knows that. They know that, you'll feel movement differently with different babies based on placental placement. I feel like you can tell the baby's personality in the womb, the way, some of them are just super active and some of them are a little more laid back. So it's important so that you know what is normal. So now that I'm looking at that, I don't know how long it normally would have taken me to get 10 counts for him, but that's what I got on that morning. And that week, I'd also done some different stuff to induce labor. I had gone to the acupuncturist who I've gone to her before for different things. I really love her. And she had done I think 2 sessions that week to help induce labor. And I felt him move a ton during those when she was doing those. But then the next morning, on Friday morning, which was 41 weeks, I got up and I really wasn't feeling him moving then. And I thought, okay, let me see what's going on. Did the same thing, ate a snack, drank some orange juice, got, tried all this stuff. And I was getting my oldest daughter, ready for school. She was in first grade, getting her ready to go. And, the morning routine and getting breakfast for everybody and doing all that, it can sometimes be, you can't really focus on what's going on in fetal movement. So I did that, and I went and I think I had started trying to count when I was laying in bed, because I looked back at the timer, looked back at the contraction, the kick, the app that I was using at that time. It wasn't Count the Kicks. I wasn't aware of them at that point. But the app that I was using, and it had started earlier in the morning. So I think maybe I'd started doing it laying down, had gotten up, gotten a snack, started doing the morning routine, got my daughter back to school. And then I remember I went back and laid down again. And my toddler, so my second child, my second daughter, she was 2 at the time, and I was trying to count kicks, and I looked at the app and it said I had 7 kicks in 2 hours. It stopped after 2 hours, and but I remember not being convinced that any of those were definitively him moving. I was thinking, is this my my intestines? Is this my toddler crawling all over me? Like, I couldn't just sit there and fully relax and close my eyes and pay attention. I wasn't, none of those were really confirmed. I was thinking, okay, maybe he kicked, maybe that was a movement, maybe that was my toddler rolling on top of me, whatever. But it still was, I didn't even meet the lowest standards of even what ACOG would say of 10 movements in 2 hours. And again, I wasn't certain of any of those movements that I'd actually felt him move at all in those 2 hours. So I called my midwife. We talked over some things with her, and we made the decision. She's like, she asked me some questions, asked what I had done, asked what movement I was noticing, those kind of things. And she said, I think you need to go in and get monitored to make sure the baby's okay. And so I called my OB, and this is the Friday before Labor Day. So I called and so I called, and they only have a half day of clinic on Friday anyway. So I called and I said, told them my name, and I said, I'm 41 weeks pregnant and I'm concerned that my baby's not moving. And so they said, hang on just a second, and that transferred me to the nurse. And I actually knew who the nurse was because she had worked in L&D with my sister for a long time, and I had known her from my time as a doula working in the hospital. I had worked with her before. And so she knew me, and she said, your doctor, she wants you to go to L&D. Go ahead and go to L&D and get monitored. And I said, I was like, I really wasn't wanting to go into L&D and all that rigmarole. And I said, can I just come into the office? Can I just come up there and get a sono done? And she was like, no. She said, we're like trying to finish clinic before half day. You need to go in. And later when I was talking to my OB, she said, I knew that you are, this was your third baby. You know what's normal for your baby. And she said, I know that you are educated because she's a childbirth educator and a doula. And so you won't call unless there really is something going on because, and so she said, when I heard that you were calling about this, I was like, just bypass the office and go into L&D. And so we agreed that that was the right thing to do. So I just left and I was wholly unprepared to have a baby that day. I was 41 weeks. So clearly I was hoping to have a baby anytime soon. This is the longest I've been pregnant with any of them. But I had been planning a home birth and I knew I was low risk and I was a third time mom and had two previous spontaneous vaginal deliveries with 0 interventions, not even an IV drip or anything. And so honestly, I hadn't even packed a hospital bag. I'm ashamed to say, because I tell my students to do that. I tell the ones even planning home births to have a hospital bag packed in case of a transfer. And I hadn't done that yet. And I was just my midwife had encouraged me to go quickly. So I just grabbed my purse and left and went to L&D and they, and on the way, I had not been drinking any caffeine in my pregnancy because it was making me have really bad heart palpitations, we figured out. But I was like, we're going to get this baby moving. And so I had grabbed a Coke and I really didn't drink. I don't drink soft drinks, but I was like, I'm going to get this baby moving. The combo of this sugar and this caffeine will get this baby moving. And I just chugged the whole thing on the way to the hospital. And so we got to the hospital and I had called my husband and told him what was going on. And so he left work and met me and we got up there and did all the initial checking and stuff. And they quickly put me on the monitor and I was really, really relieved. Everything sounded good. His heartbeat sounded strong. That was great. And I was kind of whew, breathed a sigh of relief. And I was like, okay, well, we'll do our little thing and check on him and then I'll be able to go home and I'll probably have him this weekend because I've never been pregnant this long and I've been having prodromal labor and everything will be fine. We can just kind of breathe a sigh of relief. He's probably going to start moving now, all those kind of things. And so, the nurses were doing all the stuff of checking me in and getting me ready and I was signing the consent forms and everything. And then they said, the sonographer's going to come and do the ultrasound. So she came and I was just kind of talking. My midwife's assistant was there, who's actually a friend of mine. And my midwife lives a little further away, but she was kind of waiting to see what was going to happen, if I was just going to be sent home or if I was, going to see what was happening with the monitoring before making a decision. Because what she does is if you transfer care to the hospital, then she goes into a doula role instead of a care provider role. So she was kind of waiting to see. And my husband was there and we were just talking and the sonographer was doing her thing and I really wasn't paying attention. And I could see the nurses kind of looking at the ultrasound screen. And then I asked her at one point, I said, how's my fluid level? And she said, not good. And I said, really? I said, it was a 10 on Monday. She goes, really? She kind of stopped and looked at me and I said, yeah. I said, I had a biophysical profile on Monday. It was a 10. And she said, and I said, what is it now? And she said, you really don't have any measurable fluid. I couldn't even give you a 1. And at that point I was like, oh no, they're not going to want me to go home. They're going to want to induce. And I was thinking, what can I do? Maybe I can ask for IV fluids and see if that helps. And the sonographer said, did your water break? And I said, no, I haven't noticed anything. She said, you would have noticed for sure if your fluid level had been a 10 and your water broke. And I knew I was well hydrated because I'd had all the orange juice and water and Coke and everything. So it's not like I was dehydrated, but even if you're dehydrated, they should see a little bit of fluid. You shouldn't have no fluid. Then she kept, moving me from side to side. She's like, okay, come on this side. And she was poking my belly and moving around. And she's like, am I hurting you? And I said, no, you're not hurting me. Just do what you need to do. And she's like, let me move you to the other side. She's like, I'm trying to get him to move. So she moved me to the other side and she's doing more. And I was just, talking to everybody and kind of like, oh, let's not super clued into what she was doing. And talking to some of the nurses who were coming in and out because, this was the hospital where my sister worked. She wasn't there that day. I'll talk about that more later, but she wasn't there that day. But the other nurses, I knew them because my sisters worked there for a long time. And then the sonographer just turns off the machine and she said, "That's been 30 minutes. I didn't get him to move once." And I said, "Not once?" And she said, "No." And she said, "You got a 0 for fluid and 0 for tone." And at that point, I was kind of like, oh, even sharing that now, I kind of get chill bumps talking about it because I was like, this is really serious. And the nurses just looked at me and they said, "You did the right thing by coming in. You were right. He was not moving. He's not moving at all." And even from her, flipping me from side to side, pushing him around, poking and prodding on my belly, she couldn't get him to make a voluntary movement once. And so at that point, and anybody who's involved in obstetrics, they'll tell you when you hear a 0 for tone, they all say, that makes the hair on the back of our neck stand up. That's just not good. And so we had told my midwife and she's like, "I'm coming up right now." And I later found out she told her husband when she was leaving the house, she said, "I just hope I can see her before they take her into surgery." She said, "I don't think that's going to happen though. I think they're going to have her back in the OR by the time I get there." And then the nurse came and she said, "Your doctor is on her way up here right now." And she was leaving the busy clinic day, right before holiday. And so she's on her way up here right now. And this is, a 0 for tone is really not good. She goes, "We don't like to see that at all." And they had at this point put me back on the monitor. And she said, "The only thing you got going for you is his heart rate is really good and looks strong. So that buys you a little more time." And they said, "She's coming up here and she is wanting to prep you for surgery. But because his heart rate looks good, that can buy you a little more time. We've talked to her. What she said she wants is for us to start Pitocin right now. And so she wants to see get in a contraction pattern enough so she can see 3 contractions in 10 minutes. Because she wants to see what his heart rate does. And if there's any kind of deceleration or anything going on with him that shows that he's not handling the contractions well, she wants to go ahead and do a C-section before it turns into, an emergency, running down the hall, have to put me under general anesthesia kind of thing." And I was just kind of like, wow, whoa, this is not what I had expected. Because I had probably been in the hospital maybe an hour at this point, an hour and a half. And I already had, they were telling me what to do, what was going on. And I was asking questions and giving my consent. And thankfully I understood pretty much what was going on from all my work as a doula and a childbirth educator. But I had not been in there very long at all. And they had me, they had the Pitocin going and they had it going. I don't remember what level it was on, but enough to try to quickly get contractions going. And his heart rate kept doing good. And then one of the nurses checked me. She said the doctor wanted to know how far dilated I was when, we were considering what to do. And she had said about 2.5 centimeters. When my doctor came up, she said I was more 3 to 4. And I was talking to her and she was saying she was actually going out of town later that day because it was Labor Day and she had a trip planned. And she was like, "I really don't want to leave you with the on-call doctor if this is going to turn into an emergency cesarean situation. If it's going to be a C-section, I want to know that it's right now. And it can be, a calmer situation. I can do it as, as your primary physician and all this kind of stuff." She said, "But let's see what this looks like." So when she had checked me, she was saying, "He looks good on the monitor, and he feels kind of low already. He looks good on the monitor." And I told her, I was like, "Strip my membranes while you're down there. Let's do everything to get this going." So she stripped my membranes. And she, had the Pitocin going and she's like, "Okay, he looks good on the monitor right now. So I'm okay with you being here if you are, continuously monitored, just knowing that he wasn't moving at all. And she said, I'm going to go talk to the on-call doctor because she was not going to be around the whole day. I'm going to go talk to the on-call doctor and you can, have her come in and talk to you because she'll manage your labor as this goes on. And so, in the middle of this and all this going on, I remember I was sitting there and it just, again, I had left the house with just my purse. Part of the reason was I was trying to get out of the house quickly. Part of the reason was I really wasn't thinking this is what was going to happen. I knew you need to go and get checked out with decreased fetal movement, but I honestly thought I was going to go in there and everything was going to be okay. So I kind of the seriousness of it hit me and just even, okay, we're going to have a baby right now. I'm not having a home birth. I'm being induced like a quick, fast and furious induction, like right now. And I remember, as they started Pitocin, just tears started rolling down my face. My husband was in there with me and I said, I said, will you come here? And I said, will you pray for me and pray for this baby and just pray for safety for both of us and pray that I would be able to make good decisions about what to do and how to proceed today and with all the things that were going on. And I told him, I said, pray that I can, if there's any way that I can have a vaginal birth, I can have a vaginal birth. But I also knew, if I had to have a C-section, if he really didn't tolerate labor well, that would be, that I would be okay with it because the ultimate outcome is wanting to have a healthy baby and a healthy mom. And, and sometimes as much as I know and I see as a birth worker, the interventions are overused. There are times they do have their time in place. And when things veer from normal, that's when I'm thankful we have interventions to help keep moms and babies safe. So they started with Pitocin and my OB had stripped my membranes. And initially, I don't remember exactly how long, but initially it wasn't terribly intense. I mean, I could feel that I was having contractions. I could see on the monitor that I was having contractions, but it wasn't like I needed a lot of support through them. I was, I would maybe kind of close my eyes a little bit, but it wasn't like they were requiring all of my attention. I was even able to get, call my mom and get things settled for our two older girls to be able to, get our older daughter picked up from school and all that kind of stuff. And I told my husband, I was like, let's go walk the halls to try to get this going, get this kicked in. And one of the things the on-call doctor had said was, as long as baby is doing okay, and right now he's doing okay on the monitor, and as long as she's like, you need to have a baby, we need to proceed towards this. But as long as he's doing okay, we can kind of take as long as we need to. We can do what we need to. And I said, no, we're going to have a baby today. And what I meant by that was I was like, I don't want to just sit in the hospital waiting for labor to start. I mean, I know women who've had to be induced to have different philosophies of how they want to do it and everything. But I was like, if I have to be here, if this induction is really necessary, which it is, I was like, we're going to have a baby. I'm not just going to sit in the hospital hanging around waiting for labor to happen and waiting for this to turn into something serious. Because right now, I knew we were kind of on borrowed time. And I was like, right now, everything's okay, but we're going to go for this and we're going to have a baby and we're going to have a baby today. So I told my husband, I was like, let's walk the halls. This was pre-COVID when you could get out and walk the halls in the hospital. So I took my IV pole with the Pitocin going and we walked like one loop on L&D. And by the time we came back, I was like, it was labor. It was active labor. And I think that's the difference for me between kind of spontaneous labor and an induction with Pitocin is that to me, with spontaneous labor, I was having regular contractions, but I felt like they kind of built up in a normal progression, even though my previous labors were fairly straightforward and were fairly quick. And so they got to an intense point quicker than a lot of women. But this was like I was, talking to my mom on the phone about childcare, walked the halls, and by the time I got back, I was like, couldn't talk. the TV had been on a room. I'm like, turn the TV off. Like, I need y'all's help. I need, my midwife was up there at that point and her assistant. I was like, I need some help. I need support. Like, definitely having to work through the contractions all of a sudden. And so it just hit really, really quickly. Like, I was okay. And then I'm like, now I'm in active labor. So I labored in the room for a while. I did, I had a birth ball, I had a peanut ball. I was standing up, doing different things, moving on the bed. And I remember the on-call OB, who was really, really fantastic. That I couldn't have asked for a better care provider given the situation of what was going on. She came in and she was like, let me check you. And again, the timeline, the labor land, everything just blurs together. I don't remember how long it had been, but long enough that she said, let me check you again and see if this is doing anything, if the level of Pitocin we have you on is making progress, so we can know if we need to turn the Pitocin up or what. And she checked me and I was about 6 centimeters. And I was hoping I was further along just because I think every woman, when you hear anything less than 10 centimeters, you wish you were further along. But, I've got the Pitocin drip and I'm like, okay, it's not very fun, but I'm 6. So I've made a little bit of progress. And at that point I said, I want to get in the bathtub. And one of the great things at the hospital where I was is they have wireless monitors. They're almost like little EKG stickers that you can just stick on your belly and they transmit wirelessly and they can actually get wet. So I know all of the evidence about continuous fetal monitoring and how it's overused and all those kind of things. But in my situation with a baby who was compromised, who had gotten a 0 on tone, I needed to be continuously monitored because I knew that at any point this could change to a very serious situation and move to a C-section. So, but I was so thankful they had that ability to monitor me continuously while I was in the bathtub. So I we rolled in the IV pole and I had this, little contraption on my belly that was monitoring him. And I was in the water and I feel like I got into a really good groove and I labored for a while. And the people who were there who had been with me with previous labors, my midwife, her assistant, my husband, a good friend of mine who's a photographer who had taken pictures of my second, they all said, I think at the time and later, that I was doing so much better handling the contractions than I had been before. You would think as a doula and childbirth educator, I'd be an expert at this. I tell people it's a lot easier for me to tell you what to do than it is to actually do it. The hard part is to actually do it in labor and to remain calm when contractions, are really strong. And when you have all of these forces working to get this baby out. But I was just determined that I was going to stay calm, that I was going to stay relaxed, that I was going to do it this time. And so I was working really hard. I'm very vocal in labor as far as, making those labor sounds, that labor moan, it just comes out. I don't mean to, it just does. And so I make a lot of noise in labor, all those things, but I felt like I was doing a really good job handling even in really intense contractions and really long contractions. And, at one point, and then I remember I was in the bathtub and I started to feel pressure, like it was almost time to push. And I started to feel it, but I was like, I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it as long as I can, because with my second, pushing had been a little more difficult for me than with my first. It was hard for me to find a groove and find a good position. And part of me wondered if I had started pushing a little too early when I first felt the urge. So I thought, I'm going to wait till I feel an overwhelming urge. I'm not going to push. I'm going to just keep going through this. I'm not going to tell anybody I need to push. I'm just going to wait until I know for sure I have to push. And to the point that even my midwife who was in there, and again, she was at this time in a doula role, not a care provider, but she had said she was watching me and she could hear me. She said I was kind of like holding my breath and bearing down a little bit at the top of contractions. I wasn't meaning to. It was just kind of what I was doing. And she even asked a couple times, she was like, are you pushing? Do you need to push? Are you feeling pressure? What are you feeling? And because she was noticing that I was starting to push and even starting to push involuntarily. And so I kind of didn't respond or say anything for a while. And then at some point I said, I need to get out of the bathtub. This isn't feeling good anymore. So I got up and I was moving and everything. And I said, I need to push. I think I remember I went back over to the bed and I was standing up on the side of the bed and I said, I need to push. It feels like the baby's coming. They're like, okay, great. If you need to push. And I was pushing and I was, just thought, okay, good. This is going to be straightforward. And again, I don't exactly remember the time, but I do remember it was light outside and I remember thinking, okay, good. I'm going to have this baby before shift change. And one of the reasons I was really thankful for that, in my first birth, when I shared my birth story, my sister was my nurse. My sister happened to be really sick this day. She had a high fever. She felt terrible. She was like, there's no way I can come into the hospital. And you don't want me to come in when I'm sick. And so one of her coworkers who was there was one of the nurses that I loved and I felt real comfortable with, and she's just fantastic. And whenever I was there with doula clients, she would just say over and over, she goes, I just love an unmedicated birth. And I knew, I was like, okay, I want her here. I really feel comfortable with her. I'd known her for a long time, which again was a blessing. I know that most women, when they go into the hospital, are meeting the laborer and delivery nurse for the first time when they're going in. And I thought, well, good, I'm going to have this baby before shift change. So it was maybe close to 6, maybe a little earlier than 6. I can't remember exactly, but I knew that looking at the time, I would probably have the baby before 7. And pushing for a little bit. And I think the doctor had come in and she was maybe looking and didn't see my perineum bulging or something. And she goes, let me just check really quick to see where you are. And actually, when I was saying I needed to push and they could see I was pushing and my body was pushing and I was doing this, if you've had a baby in the hospital, when it's time to push, they usually bring in a whole crew. There's there's an extra labor and delivery nurse. There's the baby nurse. There's the OB tech who helps, is the doctor's assistant, and the doctor comes in and the doctor put all the stuff in. And I was thinking, okay, good. It's go time. It's time to have the baby. The reason they're here is because it's time to have a baby. And when I tell my doula clients that, when people come in, I'm like, look, especially if they don't feel like they're close to having a baby or they're getting discouraged, I'll say, look, all these people are here. You're about to have a baby. And so I was thinking that, and the doctor checked me at one point and she said, you are 8 centimeters and your cervix is starting to swell. You have to stop pushing right now. And I was like, oh my goodness, what do you mean? How is this happening? I'm like, this is my 3rd baby. I know what it feels like to push. How am I not ready to push? And I think one thing I had left out from the ultrasound, the sonographer had said he was posterior when she did that. And I was thinking, how is he posterior? I mean, I know he had been breached at that one point, but any other time we had palpated, I had done an ultrasound, anything, even the ultrasound the few days before, he had been anterior, facing my back, like as he was supposed to be. And we don't know if it was something related to why he was conserving energy, that he had maybe gotten in that position because there was better blood flow, whatever was going on. Also, my placenta, I had an anterior placenta. I don't know if that kind of encouraged him to flip posterior. But the doctor, when she checked me, she just said, he's posterior and that's probably why you're feeling an urge to push because of his position. And I thought, oh no, okay. And I was like, stop pushing. You can do this. Chill out. And at this point, I realized before I hadn't had any of the classic signs of him being posterior in labor, as far as I didn't have a lot of back pain. I was able to be in the tub and I was kind of more on my side when I was in the tub. But at this point, I could only tolerate being forward leaning. I was leaned up either on the back of the bed or on my husband, like when a contraction would come, he would kind of put his arms like under my armpits and hold me up, and I was leaned over him. At that point, I can see how maybe I was feeling that because I had to be in a forward-leaning position. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stop pushing. I'm not going to push. So I worked through it as much as I could. And again, all the sequence of events and everything kind of gets blurry with labor. But I remember I went to the bathroom at one point and I tried to labor on the toilet some. I was trying to fight the urge to push. And the doctor checked me again at one point and she said, "You're still 8 centimeters, but you're not swollen anymore." And we did 2 interventions and I can't remember which one came first. I could probably ask my midwife or her assistant and they might remember. But at one point they actually broke my water to see if there was, if that would help, even though I didn't have any water, just maybe that would bring the baby down a little more and get that last little bit of the cervix to go away. And then at another point, they said, you've been drinking a lot. You're staying well hydrated. Maybe your bladder is kind of holding him up and making it hard to turn. So maybe we can do an in and out catheter and see if that would help. And so again, I was during contractions only able to really tolerate forward leaning. So both times when they did this, and they did this with a fair amount of time in between the two. I can't remember again which came first. It was, and it was both times because I felt like I need to push. And she would check me and say, "No, there's still cervix. You don't need to push." And another time it was, "No, there's still cervix and it's swelling again. You really need to stop pushing." And, so she broke my water and there wasn't any water, like nothing came out because we kind of knew that, but we thought maybe if the membranes were holding him up, that would help. And then with the in and out catheter, which was just not fun at all because my contractions were just like back to back at this point. I was in transition and I was leaning forward and a contraction ended and I told her and I like got on the bed. I was like, "You got to do it now. You've got like a minute left, like go." And so the doctor did it really quick and there was hardly any urine in there. I had been doing a good job keeping my bladder empty as far as going to the bathroom. So it wasn't that. And so at this point, I think it was about 3 hours from when I had first had the urge to push. I was still 8 centimeters dilated. My cervix was still swelling every time I tried to push. And I was still feeling the urge to push throughout this whole thing. I was fighting the urge to push so hard. And if any woman has ever done that, it's like this all-consuming thing that your body is doing. It's very different than trying to relax through contractions. I said if it were relaxing through contractions or I was able to push with contractions, either of those would have been normal, but I was trying to fight the urge to push, was just got to be too much. And I think after the whole hospital staff had come in thinking I was going to deliver, and then they all left, about 30 minutes after they came in. And I was like, I know that's what that means. I know that means I'm not close to having a baby. And they told them all to leave. And then when breaking my water didn't change anything, and when doing the catheter didn't change anything, they had mentioned getting back in the tub, but at this point I was really needing to be in forward leaning positions. And I was like, I can't imagine like getting back down into it was just a normal bathtub, like the hospital bathtub. It wasn't like a big birth pool or anything like that I could actually like be forward leaning. It's like, I don't think I could do that. And I said, I need to get an epidural. And this is the first time in any of my 3 labors that I had requested an epidural. I never mentioned the word epidural with my first. And my second, I remember joking about wanting an epidural, but I was at home. There was clearly no way I was going to get an epidural. It was just kind of thinking, it would be nice if I could have an epidural right now, but clearly I can't have an epidural, And so I was, I said, I want an epidural. And so I think initially they were like, "You're okay. You can do this. We're going to keep going. You've done this before. You can just," I said, "I know I've done this before, but this is different." I said, "I was not prepared for this." By this, I meant a hospital induction with zero warning that it was coming. By this, I also meant being 8 centimeters and having this urge to push for about 3 hours and doing all these kind of things and not getting to 10 centimeters and not being able to push. And I had never had that happen before. I'd always just been straightforward and it was going. And at this point, I still couldn't fight the urge to push. And I think my midwife and her assistant had suggested getting on the peanut ball and trying to see if that could help rotate the baby around. And I absolutely could not tolerate that at that point. Looking back, as a doula, I can kind of think through some stuff. I was like, maybe I could have stood up in the shower and leaned on my husband, and that would have been enough relaxation not to. I think if I could have gotten into a birth pool, like a big enough pool where I could be forward leaning, that would have maybe taken off enough pressure that I could have relaxed through it. And I'm thinking, maybe I should have done some lunges, like with my foot on a chair, like Captain Morgan lunges. But when you're in the middle of that as a mom in labor, you can't think through those things. You can't doula yourself. And I was, they were trying they were throwing everything out they could, breaking my water, doing the in and out catheter, trying to get me in different positions, trying to get me to do everything. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, this scenario absolutely never came in my mind that I would have a third baby and have the urge to push and have so much trouble getting to 10 centimeters and not being there. And my dear friend, who's a professional photographer who was there, taking pictures, she told me, she wrote down a bunch of the funny stuff I said. And, it's, that you could write a book about all the crazy things women say in labor. But she said at one point, I told my husband, I said, this is it. I'm not having any more. If you want any more children, we're adopting them. And he said, that's fine. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. And, of course that changes. Now I wouldn't be up for having another baby and going through labor again. And then I told him, I said at one point, I thought third babies were supposed to come out. And why won't this baby come out? And I was just so discouraged. And again, I was like, I can't fight this urge to push anymore. Like, this is too hard. And I was like, I really need an epidural. And one of the nurses said, do you have a code word? Do you have a code phrase? And I said, this is my code phrase. I said, I'm saying it. I want an epidural. And they said, okay, we can do that. We can do it. And so at that point, they started the IV fluids, and because you have to get a full IV bolus. And I had been on Pitocin, but thankfully they hadn't been running tons of IV fluids with it, just the minimum amount to get it through. And they did that, and then the anesthesiologist came and gave me the epidural. And at that point, I was still able to feel contractions, but I was able to get enough pain relief, and I was able to stop pushing. That was the main thing that I needed, was the ability to stop pushing. So I would stop swelling my cervix, because I never got past 8 centimeters, and all I could do was stop pushing for a little bit, and my cervix would stop swelling, and then I would feel the urge to push again, and it would swell again. So that was the primary thing. The reason I got it is I was able to stop pushing because I couldn't feel the urge to push anymore. So I did the peanut ball, which the peanut ball is magical. And women, if you are in a situation where you need to labor in bed, whether it is you have gotten like a balloon and you're not very mobile, or you're on magnesium, or you have an epidural, a peanut ball is your friend in labor when you are in the bed. So I did, and I remember thinking when I got the epidural, I was still having the urge to push. And I was like, if he gives me this epidural and the baby is born 5 minutes later, I'm going to be so mad. I'm going to be so angry. But he wasn't. I did 45 minutes of the peanut ball on one side, and then I flipped to the other side and did 45 minutes on the other side. And also in my decision for an epidural and in doing this kind of stuff, I was thinking, we need to get him flipped around. We need to get him here. And, he's still compromised. At any point, his heart rate could just tank. And I could have maybe continued longer, like pushed through physically, but I don't know how much longer he would have tolerated labor. If he had 3 or 4 more hours of me trying to get to 10 centimeters on my own and fighting the urge to push, if he would have gotten there. So after, an hour and a half of 45 minutes on each side, I was like, I really feel like I need to push. Like, there's pressure. He's down there. I need to push. And I was like, please go get the doctor. It's time to go. So the doctor came in and she's like, oh, baby is right there. I think she said, just give me one push the next contraction that you feel. Cause I was still feeling contractions. And so I pushed and she goes, oh yeah, baby's right there. I can see the baby's head. And so she, geared up, did all her stuff. And I pushed, maybe through like 4 or 5 contractions, not that long, maybe not even that long, and then he was born. He had turned around. Eventually the peanut ball had caused him to turn around. So he was no longer posterior. He came out anterior, and he was, a little bit blue initially, or pretty blue actually initially in the pictures, but then he started crying, and he cried for like 45 minutes and he did not stop. And the fun thing, again, we didn't know we were having. We had 2 girls, and my husband and I would have been so happy either way with either another girl or a boy. But it was really fun after things kind of went off the tracks of what we had expected with having a home birth and everything. It was really fun to be able to have that. When he was born and the doctor held him up, and I said, it's a boy. Like I think, one of the pictures I sent you, it's that nurse that I said was so fantastic. And then my husband, when we first saw he was a boy, and we're all just, overwhelmed with emotion and excitement. And so if there's any mom out there and you're not sure if you want to be surprised or not, I would say be surprised. It was so much fun. And I always tell people, if we have any more, I'm going to be surprised. That was the most fun thing to do. So, I'm getting tears in my eyes now just thinking about it, how much fun it was. And that sweet nurse had stayed over. It was actually 9:19 when initially I was like, I'm going to have this baby before shift change, when it was like 5:45 or 6 when I was initially like pushing. And I'm like, I'm going to have this baby, quickly. And it ended up being way past her shift. The shift changes at 7, and she stayed until 9:19. And I thanked her profusely afterwards. And she was like, I was not going to leave you. She said, your sister told me to take good care of you. And I said, I would. And she was like, I was not going to leave until that baby was here. And I was and I was taking care of you. And I know, I just appreciated that so much, to have her in the midst of a situation that was not anything what I expected. And so, then my son, the doctor immediately gave him to me. He came up on me, and he was, I was able to hold him. And we waited a little while, and she had said, Dad, are you ready to cut the cord? And I looked and I said, I still think it's pulsing just a little bit. I was like, please wait. Can I just have one thing on my birth plan? I was like, everything else has gone off the rails with my birth plan. I was like, I just want one thing. She was like, sure, we'll wait. No reason to cut it now. And so we waited, 5 or 10 minutes more till it had completely stopped pulsing. He had the full benefit of delayed cord clamping, and then my husband cut the cord, and maybe the doctor cut it. I think my husband cut it the second one, but anyway, we waited longer before cutting the cord. Afterwards, everyone in the hospital told me over and over and over how thankful they were that I came into the hospital when I did. They said, thank you so much for coming in. One, a lot of them were just in disbelief that he had lasted through labor and induction, and that he did okay and his heart rate was okay. I remember my midwife was with me, and she kept thinking she was going to look over at the monitor and just see that his heart rate was, going down, or that there was no variability or anything, but he did fine. Miraculously, he did fine. And again, I didn't notice him move at all in labor. When you're in labor, sometimes it's hard to tell because there are so many sensations. It's sometimes hard to tell what you're feeling, but there was no noticeable movement for me at all that day from the time I woke up to when I had him. And every single one of them, all the doctors, all the nurses, my midwife's assistant, everybody, they were like, you did the absolute right thing of coming in. And we don't know what would have happened if you would have waited. It was Labor Day weekend. My next appointment wasn't until Tuesday, or, if I'd waited a few more days, what would have happened? Being a doula and a childbirth educator, when I teach about childbirth, I teach about like the normal process and what that looks like and some of the variations. And I teach some of the complications, but not everything. And I knew that a baby that wasn't moving was serious. I didn't realize how serious it was until, and especially that he was not moving at all, that he got a 0 in tone. And there was there's a breastfeeding doctor here in town who is a retired neonatologist. She retired from our hospital practice and then became an IBCLC and opened up a breastfeeding medicine clinic. And I went to see her postpartum just to have her check a couple things. And I was telling her about it, and I made a comment about how I was really thankful that I was able to have a vaginal birth. And she looked at me seriously. She's like, I'm really thankful you had a live baby. And just different things like that from people really hit me about the seriousness of his lack of movement, and it got me thinking, what would have happened had I not gone in? And through that, I actually found Count the Kicks, which it was, I think, a suggested follow to me on Instagram. I don't, how your phone like listens to you and like you,
yeah,
like you're like, how did you hear me? Anyway, it was a suggested thing for me, and I looked at it and I started looking into their thing and I started reading about their history and what they were. And I was like, oh, this is amazing, because I, as a childbirth educator, I had always told moms to monitor fetal movement. I said, pay attention to fetal movement. You know what's normal for you and your baby, but, and if you feel like something's off, go in and get it checked out. But there was never really a good way to quantify that. Or, moms would just say, I feel like something's off, but I'm not sure. I don't know. And I started looking at Count the Kicks and what it did. And I thought, this is amazing. This is what I was trying to do in counting my baby's kicks. This is what other women need to do. And, but it gives you a way to quantify fetal movement so you can know for sure what's going on. And I looked at a lot of the ambassadors, which I'm currently the Mississippi ambassador for Count the Kicks. And a lot of the ambassadors came to them because they had a fetal loss. And they said, I didn't know how important fetal movement was, or I thought my baby had slowed down moving, but I just waited until my next appointment. Or I called and the doctor said, or the nurse or whoever I talked to said it's probably okay. Or I Googled it and it says 10 kicks in every 2 hours. That's the ACOG standard. And I saw how their, Count the Kicks is an organization that was started by 5 mothers, each who lost a baby. And they were connected through various sources, and they turned their collective grief into action. They wanted to honor their children's memory by helping other mothers avoid this. And they started looking into this and looking into stillbirth research and seeing that. And they saw that counting kicks is the most effective way to monitor a baby in the 3rd trimester. And once I started learning more about that and, sitting there holding my perfectly healthy baby and thinking to myself, what if I hadn't gone in? What if I told myself everything was okay? Everything had been fine at your appointment a few days ago. You haven't had any complications your whole pregnancy. I could have, and it's inconvenient to go into the hospital. You can take a whole day, all this kind of stuff. And I just started thinking, what if I had talked myself out of this? Or what if I had other plans that day and hadn't been paying attention to his movement? And, and just the thought of what could have happened had I not gone in when I did was just devastating to me. And I thought, I am so, so thankful that God protected my baby and that I trusted my maternal instincts to go in when I did. And I could tell that something was off. And I was like, I want other women to have this information and to have this knowledge to be able to save their babies. Because, anyway, so that's how I came to Count the Kicks and came to be an ambassador for them, because I want moms to have this correct information, because it's really not out there. Again, if you Google, ACOG will say you should get 10 counts in 2 hours. That's likely too long for the vast majority of babies to get 10 counts, to get 10 kicks. And the way Count the Kicks works is moms, they want you to, around the same time every day, it's usually in the evening. It's a time when baby is most active for you. And every mom knows this. Oh, my baby always moves at this time of day, or they're quieter at this time of day, whatever. But a time when they're normally active, sit down that time every day and get the app, Count the Kicks. So if any moms out there are in their 3rd trimester, I want to encourage you right now, go download the app. It's free. It's ad free. It always will be. It's in 7 different languages. Download the app and start counting. So what you do is you can create an account. You count how long it takes your baby to get to 10 movements. And after a few days, you will see a pattern. You'll say, oh, my baby usually gets 10 movements in 5 minutes, or 15 minutes, or 20 minutes, whatever is normal for your baby in that pregnancy. It's going to be different for everybody. So you know it's normal. So you can then tell if there's a really big change. If, I just did it 2 days and I could see a huge change, and I knew, okay, this is not good. But if you're doing it every day, you can quickly notice a change, and then you can go and get it checked out if you need to. It's also, it can be very, very reassuring. The vast majority of the time babies are okay, but we've all known this when we've been, close to our due dates, or we've been, even past our due dates, and you just get this feeling, I hope everything ever's okay. Like, I hope the baby's okay. I don't know. This is a way to remove anxiety, because you can, if you've been counting kicks regularly, you can sit down and count kicks and think, okay, baby's moving just the same as before, because an active baby is a healthy baby. And some of the things that I did not realize until after I had my son and started researching this, 1 in every 167 pregnancies end in stillbirth in the U.S. That's the current statistics. And there are vast racial disparities. Black moms, 1 in every 94 pregnancies end in stillbirth. For Hispanic moms, it's 1 in every 191. For white moms, it's 1 in every 204. And we know that's from racism, systemic racism in healthcare in the United States. And Count the Kicks is committed to ending these disparities and these racial disparities in stillbirth, and they have specific initiatives working towards that. And one of the cool things is that Count the Kicks was started in Iowa, and it was started by 5 moms in Iowa, and that program has been fully implemented by the health department in Iowa. All of the OBs, clinics, all the midwives, everybody knows about it. The moms, they've got a big, big push for moms to know about this. And in Iowa, where it's been fully implemented, and they started it about 10 years ago, they have seen a 32% decrease in their stillbirth rate, whereas the rest of the country, the levels have remained the same. They've not changed at all. And the only thing they've done is teach moms about how to monitor their babies. So that's just, I think it's really, really important. And I know a lot of people they think, I don't want to talk about stillbirth. That's scary. I don't want to do this, but or I don't want to scare moms. They might think that, but I think what we really do is a service to mothers when we approach it like that. Because I think what's worse is not having the information to be able to make informed decisions and protect your baby. And especially when there is research out there that counting kicks and monitoring fetal movement reduces the number of stillbirths. And one of the things that I really want to communicate with women right now, especially as we're dealing with COVID, is that I know there can be a lot of fear of going into hospitals, and that they are trying to keep, and just in general, are trying to keep healthy women out of the hospitals and healthy people out of the hospitals. And mothers might be more reticent to speak up or go to the hospital and get monitored. And they've actually seen initial data from the past 6 months. I was talking to one of the employees of Count the Kicks recently, and the initial data shows that stillbirth rates are going up during COVID because women are less likely to go into the hospital and get monitored. And I know, I remember that morning when I was going with my son, I was just thinking, let's just go and get this done, and then we'll come home and I'll go into labor sometime this weekend. I was not that was not on the agenda that day, was to go into the hospital and get monitored. But I'm so thankful I did. And I can only imagine now moms who are not wanting to go into the hospital, or, they're limiting who can come with you, and those kind of things, that they might be less likely to speak up when they feel like there's a problem. I want to encourage moms, if you feel like there's a problem, you are your baby's only advocate. You are their voice. And so if you feel like there is something wrong, the maternal instinct is real, and we can know when something is off. And if you feel like something is off, go in and get monitored. Speak up and tell your doctor that you think something is wrong, or tell your care provider, whoever that is, and get your baby checked on. And hopefully everything will be fine and you won't have to face crazy interventions like I did. But if not, you'll be like me, and you will just be forever grateful that you did what you needed to do to protect your baby. Yeah, so a couple resources. Count the Kicks on their website. They have the app. They also have their website, countthekicks.org, and there is a parent academy on there. And so go to the parent academy. They have all the information you could want about how to use their app, fetal movement, all that kind of stuff. You'll learn a lot, and it'll be really helpful. They also have a provider academy, if there are any providers that are listening and want to go on there. And they have providers can also order materials to share with the clients that they're working with, to be able to educate parents about fetal movement and tracking kick counts, to be able to monitor their baby's movement in pregnancy.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that great information. I've been connected with Count the Kicks for a few years now as well, and it's been really cool to see, their app get, improved and added languages and all that stuff. So yeah, people can just search that in their app store, or like you said, go to the website. And then did you want to share where people can connect with you, or just have them leave comments on the show notes page?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Instagram. My page for my birth work is Grace in Birthing. My personal page is Grace B. Greene. B as in boy, and then Greene with an E at the end. And and then Count the Kicks is also on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and again, their website, and then the app. So those are all places you can find them.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on today, Grace. It was nice to have you back.
You're welcome. Thank you. I enjoyed getting to talk.
Now I'm going to chat with Brandy from Ergobaby, today's sponsor. Hi, Brandy. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today to talk to me about Ergobaby and all things baby wearing.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So much fun.
All right. Well, can you tell my listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do at Ergobaby?
Yes. So my name is Brandy Sellers-Jackson. I'm a social media manager over at Ergobaby. So what that looks like is, myself and Christina Soletti, we create content that is about baby wearing, obviously, Ergo products, but then also what that looks like within parenting. So we cover everything, obviously, from baby wearing basics to tips. Like we have a Tips Tuesday, to, how can I get my little one to sleep, and how can I get things done? How does that work, and how can I have some free hands? And so enter Ergobaby. So we try to combine all of those things, just to make everyone's lives a little bit easier during this #parent life.
Yeah. So I've been a fan of Ergobaby products for, I guess, coming up on a decade now. And I just love the function and they're beautiful and they work really well. But I also love the brand and how you guys really put so much effort into focusing on the benefits of baby wearing and like you said, even just expanding beyond that into supporting parents through parenthood. And I really love your most recent Why Baby Wear series, which is a hashtag for those of you that are into hashtags. Can you talk a little bit about those efforts and then just some of those favorite benefits of baby wearing that you guys are covering with that?
Yeah, there are a few things. One of my favorites is obviously you get stuff done. I mean, with a lot of us who, whether you have one baby or 20 babies, 3 can feel like 20.
Right.
Especially now during COVID, I think, all of us are so quarantined in. It can feel overwhelming. You have kids who are remote learning, but then also you have a toddler who's just really fussy and just wants to be held, or you have a little one, a newborn who needs to be held. It can be really challenging. And so one of my favorite benefits is that you're able to get some things done. You're able to multitask. You're able to be hands-free. And one of the things that I've always said, too, about baby wearing that I've always loved is that, especially when you're in the throes of postpartum, new baby, you can begin to feel like you're just this extension of another person and that you're actually not a person. You don't know when the last time you took a shower, when was the last time that you brushed your teeth, and all those things. You don't even know when was the last time you went to the bathroom.
Right.
And those things being because you are literally holding a little person all the time. And so the beauty in baby wearing is that you have your hands free, and hands, we can go and make ourselves a meal. We can go, wash a dish or two. We can brush our teeth. We can, I don't know, whatever you use for your hands. And it reminds yourself that you're a human and you're a person. And, just that connection of getting things done, being able to multitask, doing things that you did before. And so I think that's one of the many benefits of baby wearing, just being hands-free. Obviously, there's tummy time. A lot of people stress about getting tummy time in, and baby wearing actually allows you to get your tummy time in.
Right.
So you're doing all the things. You're getting stuff done. You're getting tummy time done. You're building a connection with your little one. There's so many. And then also, obviously, baby's able to see from your point of view and observe as opposed to just, in a bassinet or in a crib or, in the playpen, you're able to put baby on you and talk with them as you're doing things, whether you're making yourself some food or whether you're, drawing or whatever it is, working. I mean, so many of us are working right now from home, you're able to talk to baby while you're doing it. And so, yeah, I guess if I could sum it up, you're able to connect with yourself by simply doing the things that you may have done before because you have some free arms, you have some free hands,
right.
But then also there's just so many benefits to it that I just named.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of two categories. There's the practicality of all the things you can get done and just and the tummy time, getting that in because babies like to be baby weared and they generally hate tummy time. So that's a nice trade-off. But there's also a lot of research too around benefits with bonding and that type of thing as well, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you're baby wearing, baby is on you. So, I always say skin to skin, even if you have on a sweater, that's fine. But, baby is on you. They're connected to you. They can hear your heartbeat. You can feel them breathing. They can feel you breathing, and, there's so many benefits of it. You're literally attached. So, I mean,
attachment parenting.
There's that.
There's
that,
Yeah.
I mean, for those of us who live here in, California or anywhere right now that's just ridiculously hot, I always tell folks, hey, listen, skin to skin with the carrier. Y'all just walk around, just skin to skin. It's hot. It's whatever.
Yep.
So, I think it's just such a win-win.
Definitely. Yeah, I always liked, I had, my first baby was a winter baby. And so I was worried about, keeping her warm as well as like flu season and keeping people's hands off of her. And I feel like now, flu season is kind of year round with COVID. And it's just a nice way to keep baby close and not have to worry about the outside world as much because people feel very sometimes entitled to get in your baby's face when they're in a stroller, but they're probably not going to get in your face when baby's 2 inches from it.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit. I mean, for sure, when you have baby on you, who is that person who's just all up in your bubble space like that? Who's that person who's just like all up in there? Like, although I will say this, I did experience it one time. I was wearing my middle child at the time, and I had them in a carrier. And there's just one person. It's never happened besides this one person who literally was trying to get all up in the carrier to look at the baby. And I was just like, gosh. Really? Wow. You're being that person right now. You're that person. I've never experienced that.
And you've never forgotten it.
I have never forgotten it. I've never forgotten it ever. And their face is seared in my brain because of it. Yeah. Yeah. It was quite alarming.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you probably a hard question with how familiar you are with Ergobaby products, but do you have a favorite carrier just personally?
Let's see. Honestly, I would say the classic.
I feel like every Ergobaby person I talk to says that. It's so funny. The OG.
Yeah, the classic. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love facing out. It's great. It's wonderful. Depending on the baby, some babies absolutely love it. There's some babies that are like, yeah, this is just like so much.
Right.
But I love the classic. It's just, my first carrier that I had from that I received from Ergo was their organic cotton carrier. And it was just the normal, the basic, the first one. And it was just amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And so, I mean, that's my favorite, hands down. I love the new one. Obviously, I love Harry Potter. I love the 360. I love the Omni. I love the Adapt. They just keep getting better and better. Mm-hmm. But of my favorite, if I had a favorite child, it would be the classic. I like it. I dig it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I feel you on that. We still have our original organic navy blue carrier too. And I recently talked to Nellie, who helped launch the Everlove program with Ergobaby. And I was like, ooh, maybe I should be, passing this on to another family, but I don't know if I'm ready to yet. But I just love that program. Have you heard any cool stories about that yet from people that have done it?
Yeah, for sure. And I just agree with you. I agree. There's nothing like the OG, the original. There's nothing like it. There are quite a few people that I think sometimes people do struggle with passing it on because it's like, there's so many memories. Right. It's so many memories. But the beauty of it is that when you pass it along, it goes to another family. And they're able to start their own adventure, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And just to speak to our Everlove program, basically it's a recycling program, but with a carrier. So what it looks like is, you have your carrier, your OG carrier, original, the classic, and baby is now like 25, and you're like, okay, so I can't baby wear them anymore. I don't think I can baby wear a 25-year-old anymore. And so you find out about our Everlove program and you're like, okay, this might be up my alley. I think it's time to release it to another family. And so basically we come and we pick it up. We have, postal service that comes and picks it up. And then, we make it nice and new. So we, sanitize, we, if there's anything that's broken on it, we replace it. And then say, for example, it is just like a carrier that has run its course, because that has happened too, where it's just like, okay, girl, okay, so we can't do nothing with this. There's nothing, and it's been loved very well. And then if that's the case, then obviously we won't use it. But if it's salvageable and it's reusable, we make it nice and new, and then it goes up on our site to our Everlove re-commerce program. So basically families can, buy from that collection, the refurbished collection, and it's at a lower price point, which is wonderful. And, you have an Ergobaby carrier that's been loved and pre-loved, and has, a story and a history behind it, and it's affordable. So that's the long and the short of it.
Yeah, I love that on the sentimental note too. Nellie was telling me that you can actually send like a note with your carrier to pass on to the next family just about what it meant to you and everything, which probably isn't for everyone, but it did make me kind of like a little emotional to think about. So I love that you guys have started that. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I mean, I think a lot of our carriers, as with a lot of our baby products, but I think specifically with carriers, there are a lot of memories. If you think back to any carrier that you've had, or Ergobaby carrier specifically, you could probably think of all the adventures where you've been, where you took a trip and you took the Ergobaby carrier, where you were having, a fun family gathering. We were all able to gather and you had the Ergobaby carrier. The first time you put your baby in a carrier, hard moments in the carrier,
Yeah, I was just thinking about like struggling in the airport bathroom.
Yes, and all those memories come rushing back.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really, really beautiful. It really is. And just to share that love via something that you and your family were able to benefit from, I think is just such a wonderful, wonderful thing. So,
yeah. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Brandy, for chatting with me today. This was so fun.
Thank you for having me. I'm always down to talk babies and parenting and all that jazz.
Can you tell people where they can find you? Because you are always sharing amazing content on your personal account as well.
Love it. Yes, you can find me at B Stereo on Instagram, just B as in boy and then stereo. And then obviously, Ergobaby. I'm always thinking of cool things to put out there.
Very cool. And people can use the Why Babywear hashtag as well to share their stories, or do you have a better hashtag for them to use?
Why Babywear is absolutely perfect. It just encompasses everything. So, yeah.
Very cool. All right. Thanks again, Brandy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much again to Grace for sharing her story with us, and to Brandy for chatting with you about Ergobaby. If you want more information from today's episode, you can head over to thebirthhour.com and search for Grace's name in the search bar. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.